Well, it looks like I am back live again on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm actually going to be doing some more live streams. But let me kind of give you a little background quick before we go into this. You'll notice I'm coughing. I'm just now getting over about 3.5 weeks of COVID. And so one of the lingering effects of COVID is where I've still got a cough. And so if you will give me a little bit of grace there, then you'll notice just ignore the coughing that I have. Again, the last 3.5 weeks I've been under COVID. My wife got COVID, my son and my daughter-in-law. We all had it together over the past month. On the other side of it, if you will, I still have a little bit of pneumonia in my right lung. And the doctor said that I'll take a while for it to go away. But lingering effect is I got a cough. So if you'll ignore the cough and stay focused on the content, then I think we have some really good time and start producing some more encouraging, supporting videos as we at Relate Well, Dr. Rick Marks, Relate Well, our curriculum is we try to encourage you in your marriage and strengthen your marriage, enriching your marriage. And for those who are struggling in their marriage, also to also realize, hey, you can make it. You don't have to throw in the towel. Again, we say in our world, it takes two to make an us and one to kill it. We're always about helping people relate well so they can create the healthy, loving relationships they actually want for their lives, so they can create the marriages and relationships they want for their life. So today's topic is we're going to talk about marriage and manipulation. Now, let's be honest. Manipulation is typically a negative thing, right? If you want to manipulate someone off a bridge and not kill themselves, that's a good thing, right? You're trying to figure out a way to get them to do what you want them to do for a greater good. That's a positive way, I guess you can think of manipulation. But in general, manipulating someone is not a healthy, mature thing. Mature people. People who live a life of goodwill, respect, humility, empathy, what we call the four protectors of an us. Healthy, mature people don't manipulate others. Why? Because manipulating another person is to basically treat them as an object. It is basically get them to do what you want so you can get what you want out of them. All right? That's why manipulation is so unhealthy. It lowers another person to an object, to something to be used by you or anyone to get what they want from them. In so doing, the greater damage is when you manipulate people, you disrespect their dignity as a person. You disrespect their dignity as a person. See, everyone is a human, and every person is worthy of being treated with goodwill and respect. That's dignity. All humans have dignity, inherent the fact that they exist. And so we always want to make sure that when we treat people in our relationships, we always treat them with goodwill and respect. Why? Because that's a person who's worthy of dignity. To manipulate someone it's a violation of their dignity. It basically says you're not good enough. You're not equal on par with me. You're less than me. So I've got to do things. I'm going to use you for my gain and my benefit. And that's why manipulation overall is rather destructive. Now, again, please forgive the cough. All right. It's kind of COVID leftover that I'm still struggling with and will have for quite a while. So anyways, let's move forward. So whenever we manipulate someone in marriage, to me, that's a greater violation of dignity because, see, one of the safest places we're supposed to be able to have in any relationship is the marital bond. It's supposed to be a safe place. I can take my mask off and let you see the real me, knowing that when I take that level of vulnerability, when I move to that level of vulnerability, you're not going to judge me. You're not going to insult me. You're going to love me. You're going to accept me as I am. You don't have to agree with things that I say. You don't have to agree with things that I do. But in the marital bond, the marital bond is such that we get to a place that I feel so safe and secure with you, I can, in a sense, be naked in my soul, that level of vulnerability. Now, when you manipulate your partner, you're not just saying that you're an object to be used, you're also saying, I'm not a safe person for you, and that you can't trust this relationship to be a safe relationship. And that the value of this marriage is based on what you do for me and how you do it. I.e., that's why I manipulate you to get what I want my way from you. But in so doing, you just take a relationship that is a relationship of equals, equals emotionally, equals in all aspects of life, equals in terms of humans who love each other with a deep level of intimacy and connection. And it puts you as an object and makes me better than you. This is why manipulation in marriage is so much more hurtful, because there's a level of expectation of safety that is in a marriage. Marriage is, you expect it to be a very safe place, a comforting place, a warm place. And sadly, whenever we manipulate in marriage to try and get our spouses to do what we want, it no longer becomes a safe place. And that really is the greatest violation. It's a violation of safety. Now, what is manipulation? It's anything you do to basically get what you want from your partner your way. It could be as subtle as something as hey, my brother called and I was just wondering, did you have any plans? Yes, do you have any plans for tonight? Well, no. Oh, okay. Well then, since you don't have any plans and he's in town, I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go hang out with him. Oh, remember we talked about doing such and such tonight? Yeah, I know, but you just said, see, and so I'm going based off what you just said. I'm manipulating to get what I want. You know what? You know what is a healthy manipulation? Like this. If you don't do this, then I'm leaving you. Make a decision. Oh, that's manipulative. But at least you know. I mean, it's upfront, in your face. You don't have to guess. You don't have to feel it. You have to wonder. You see, some manipulation is subtle. It's just subtle. And you're not sure if you're being manipulated or not, but something inside of you emotionally starts to churn in your brain like, well, okay, but you know what I mean? You've been there before. You see? And when that begins to happen on an ongoing basis, you're harming the relationship, you're harming your partner. So, I got some thoughts for you. If you're being manipulated in your relationship, if you're being manipulated in your marriage, then what are some things that you might feel? Let's kind of cover those. Number one, you're probably going to feel some guilt at times. So one of the things that people do when they manipulate you is they want you to feel guilty. They want you to feel bad. They want you to feel that you're being selfish, or that why would you even think that, or why would you want that? Look at me and look at all I've done, right? That old martyr syndrome. I've done all this. How dare you want to do that, or all I've done? Look at it. It's manipulation. It's to make you feel guilty. And the longer that you get manipulated so you feel guilty, you become resentful and angry over time, because a person is not respecting who you are. They're not respecting your perspective. They're not respecting your views and understandings of what's taking place in life. And so one of the things that people feel when they're being manipulated in marriage is guilt. That sense that you're doing something wrong. And there's a part of your brain that goes, but I didn't do anything wrong. But I feel like I'm doing something wrong. This became being manipulated. You're being manipulated into feeling guilty. One of the ways you get around the idea of feeling guilty is first ask a question. Though I may be feeling guilty right now in this moment because whatever you're saying or doing to me, the first question I need to ask myself is step back from the feelings of guilt and ask myself, have I done anything that has violated a law or moral code? Because let's be honest, you can be guilty of something and not feel guilty. There are people who have murdered, but they feel no guilt about the murder. You get the idea? And so whenever you start to feel guilty, ask yourself, have you violated a moral code or a law? Then you know for a fact you're probably not guilty of anything. And then ask yourself this question: what am I feeling guilty about? This guilt feeling that I'm having in this moment, what is it really about? You might find out it's just because that person is manipulating you to get what they want, so you feel bad about something, so you give them what they want. And then you begin to realize, wait a minute, I haven't done anything wrong. Of course not. You're just being manipulated. And the result of manipulation is for you to feel guilty. What purpose? So you give them what they want. Second thing that you will notice when people manipulate you in marriage is gaslighting. Gaslighting, making you feel like you're the crazy one. It's one of the things that manipulation does as well. It makes you, the one being manipulated, feel like you're the crazy one. You start to question your own thinking. You start to question your own feelings. You start to question your own reality. You start to question, am I in that case? Is there, how come I don't see these things in myself? Because that's what manipulation does. It'll also gaslight you. You see, again, the way you're going to deal with this one is you have to be able to own your own mind, own your own soul, step back from what's taking place out here in life, and ask yourself some logical, rational questions. Have I done anything wrong? Am I really crazy? Maybe this is just their perspective. Maybe they're trying to impose a perspective to make me look like I'm in that case. All right? Gaslighting is something that a lot of people like to do as a form of manipulation. Another thing that you'll feel is you feel isolated. The more manipulated you feel, the more manipulated you are, all right, that you allow people to manipulate you, the more you're going to isolate yourself, all right? And one thing that manipulators like to do in marriage is when they manipulate marriage, they're going to isolate you from them. It's like a form of punishment. All right? You didn't give me what I want, so I'm not going to talk to you. Guilty. Guilty. Early years of marriage, I wasn't a healthy, mature adult, so I didn't know how to deal with conflict. So I would manipulate with silence. I would manipulate with the stonewalling. Just get quiet and sulk because the well wouldn't give me what I want. It was very immature, by the way. Try not to do that anymore. But in my early years of marriage, and I've been married 37 years, all right, but in the early years of marriage, first 8 or 9, I was manipulative. That's what I would do. I would isolate myself and punish her with silence, right? And sulk. Why? To make her feel guilty, so she'd hold my hand or whatever it is I wanted. I'm not proud of it, but I'm here to tell you it's one of the things that I did. So you isolate your spouse with punishment. Give them the silent treatment. It's called stonewalling. Stonewalling, by the way, stonewalling, by the way, is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse mentioned by John Gottman in his research. And the 4 horsemen, if those 4 things show up in your marriage, he can predict with 93% accuracy divorce. Stonewalling is one of them. Just isolation, stony silence. Right? Another way that people manipulate is by making you feel powerless, that you don't have any other choice but what they say, that you have no choices, you have no power, you have not the ability to speak up for yourself. You don't get the ability to say what you want and believe what you want, or think what you want, or even feel what you want. It must be a certain way. One of the things early in our marriage was around faith. My wife grew up in a religious system that says if you want to be a good Christian husband, you got to be A, B, C, D, E. Well, guess what? Rick didn't fit A, B, C, D, E. And because of that, she would manipulate. She would judge me and criticize me. And I always felt powerless. I always felt helpless to ever be good enough. And then I started feeling guilty that I couldn't be like those guys over there that she looked up to. Those are the good men. Those are the Christian men. Why can't I be like them? Fortunately, I was mature enough at some point earlier in the marriage where I realized, you know what? It's because I'm not them. And I got to be me. I've never walked away from my faith, folks, but I wasn't going to be branded by that small minded legalistic system that she was raised in. But early on, I felt guilty that I wasn't those things. And so I'd try and conform early on out of guilt. The more I tried to conform, I lost me. And the more resentful I became. You see, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to live that way. Another thing that manipulation does is it makes you feel inferior. It actually makes you feel inferior. I've got to make a correction here on something. Please forgive me. Okay. The Instagram camera right over here, and it shut off for some reason. So I'm going to have to fix that in the next one. All right, so let's go back to it. Another when you're being manipulated, you might feel inferior. That again, I kind of make reference to this. Your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas actually have no value. They have no merit. They don't matter. All right. And another thing is when you're being manipulated, you're gonna feel blamed. You're the fault. You're at fault. It's all your fault. Why did you do this? What do I need to do different to become a better person, etc., etc., etc. And those are things that you'll feel when manipulations in marriage. And again, whenever we're manipulating in our marriage, you're basically sending the message to the other person that they have no standing, that who they are and what they are, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you want. And manipulation treats your partner as an object for your benefit, for your needs. And I always say, if that's how you want to live your relationship, feel free. But you understand that'll destroy the relationship itself. We call it the power of us. When us wins, you both win. When us loses, you both lose. You see, mature people always respect other people's choices. They respect another person's ability to make a choice. They respect other people's ability to have the feelings that they want. You can feel whatever you want to feel, and I can respect your feelings. That doesn't necessarily mean I agree with your feelings. Again, forgive me. Doesn't mean I agree with your decisions. But healthy, mature people always respect, and here's a key word, the boundaries that other people have for themselves. They respect their physical boundaries. They respect their emotional boundaries. They respect their spiritual boundaries. They respect their relational boundaries. They respect their intellectual boundaries. They always let people be who they want to be. They don't try and make them into something that they want them to be. Got it? You know, good parenting is not about manipulation. Good parenting is about directing. Being a good leader in a workplace. It's about manipulating people. It's about directing people. You see, the difference is mature people don't manipulate. Why? Because they always respect the dignity and value of another person. But once you start manipulating a person, inherently, when you start in that moment, unconsciously or consciously, depending on your motive, you now minimize that person to an object. And you're now using them, manipulating them to get what you want, to achieve what you want. And if you want to do that over time, feel free, but you understand it will destroy a relationship over time. Because the one who's being manipulated finally figures out, you don't value me, you use me. And if that is not the essence of a healthy, loving marriage. So then what do? You're in a relationship, you're feeling manipulated, it's been going on for a while. What do? Well, first and foremost, what we say in our world and relate well is always live a life by the four protectors: goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. Always have a sense of care. Can I speak up my thoughts, my truths? Can I speak up my thoughts and my truths in a way that's respectful? Can I share my heart, my ideas, my perspective with goodwill? The answer is yes, you can. It's the idea of speaking your truth in a loving way. And you can always speak your truth in a loving way. How do you speak your truth in a loving way? Hey, it's with goodwill and respect. No matter what I do, I'm going to treat you with goodwill and respect. But that all doesn't mean I'm going to do what you want. Doesn't mean I'm going to allow you to control me or manipulate me. Doesn't mean I'm going to let you talk down to me. Why? Because I respect myself. You see, to live a life of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy, what we call the four protectors of a relationship, to live life that way, you actually have self-respect. You have such a healthy self-value and self-worth. You're aware when you're being manipulated. And you recognize that just maybe that person's way of trying to get something done. So you don't react out of the lower order animal brain. You respond to them out of the higher order brain with goodwill and respect. So the key is that we all always living a life to the best of our ability, not perfectly, but maturely, a life of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy, what we call the four protectors, so that when manipulation happens in whatever form is taking place, we can speak to it with love and goodwill. Why? Because we value the other person. We recognize they're just trying to get a need met in an unhealthy and immature way. And that creates patience and compassion and kindness on our part. That does not mean I have to allow it to continue. Again, there's this thing called boundaries out there, and people who live a life of respect and goodwill respect people's boundaries. They don't manipulate people, right? So one of the things is when you in a relationship where that's taking place, number step back from it and ask yourself these kinds of questions when you're feeling manipulated. Is there any value or merit to what they're saying? Move to some self-awareness. Is there any value or merit to what they're saying? And if there's some level of value or merit to what they're saying, just acknowledge it. You can say, I can see that. That makes sense to me. I disagree here, but at least you can step back and rather negate what that person is, even though they may be coming across as manipulative, there may be some value or merit to what they're saying or doing. Why don't we have the goodwill to just admit that part? You see what I mean? Just kind of, I can admit with goodwill that there is merit to this piece of what you're saying. Again, remember, doesn't mean I have to agree with you completely. So I think one of the first things we can do is you step back and you just kind of evaluate and ask yourself questions like, is there any value or merit to what they're saying? Second, another question you ask yourself is basically this. Is what they're wanting, is it something that I can give? Is it something that I would like to give in this situation for whatever their need is? You see, what these questions do is they're putting the power back in your lap. So no longer am I feeling manipulated, which puts them in control. It allows me to step up to the plate and put myself in control of me. That's the power of self-awareness. Because once I become self-aware, I can have self-control. And therein lies the real power. Again, forgive me for the coughing. Those who joined kind of late, this is kind of the residue from having COVID over the past few weeks. And so it allows me to give myself back some self-control so that I can make healthy, wise decisions in the relationship. And let's be honest, maybe, I'm wanting to hold the well's hand because I want to be affectionate, and so she don't get it, so I manipulate her till she feels guilty, so she holds my hand, and I go, I don't want to hold your hand. It's all childish, it's immature. But let's say I was doing that, and fortunately I don't do that anymore. But years ago, let's say she would have come to me, she says, you know what, I understand that you're just needing some affection, and I would love to sit and hold your hands for about 20 minutes, watch TV with you. After that, though, I've got bang, bang, bang to do, okay? That would have been a very healthy, mature way to deal with someone like me. But for that to happen, she would have to see me, not as someone who's out to really just manipulate to get her. She'd recognize that I'm trying to get a relational need met in an unhealthy, immature way. She doesn't have to like the way, you see. But she can, through love, go, hey, I could do this for that. That empowers her. That gives her the power to choose what she'd like to do in that moment, and it removes the power of manipulation. I kind of like that, you see. I kind of like that idea that I can first and foremost look in the mirror and ask myself things like, is any merit of value? Is there something that I would like to give in this situation right here, right now, based on what's taking place? You see, do I have the ability to give it right now? All right. Do I have it to give it all? Those are the kinds of questions you can ask yourself that'll put you back in control, not to control them, but in control of oneself, so you don't allow yourself to be manipulated and end up with all those negative feelings we just talked about earlier. All right. Also, though you can move to some self reflection, also be very specific. Be very specific about what you want and what you don't want. Don't be vague. All right. Be very specific and clear about what you want and what you don't want. This is very, very important. All right. Um, the truth sets you free. Clarity around, which is about specifics, right? Creating clarity gives you knowledge, gives understanding. With a lack of clarity, there's going to always be a little confusion. So be very specific about what it is you're looking for, what you're wanting, what you're willing to do and not do. Don't be vague. All right. Don't be vague. And this is a really important one here as well, as we kind of wrap up. Set healthy boundaries for yourself. Excuse me. Set healthy boundaries for yourself. Don't allow someone to manipulate you and just follow them blindly. Own your own mind. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. If you say you can do something, follow through, do it. If you can't do it, just say you can't do it. It's okay. You have the right and the freedom to be you. All right? But set boundaries. Let people know what you will put up with and what you won't put up with. One of the things that my wife was really good at, and because I was so broken and immature in the early days of marriage, I actually found it threatening. She was really good with her boundaries. I mean, when she said yes, she said yes. When she meant no, she meant no. And when if she said she'd do something, she'd do it. If she said she wasn't going to do something, she was going to do it. She always had really good boundaries. And looking back at it, I'm grateful that she did. However, I'm willing to admit, in my immature days, though, I took it personal because I wasn't mature enough to not take it personal, which is why I became more manipulative. It did endear to me, but I will say this. As I grew up emotionally, as I matured, I began to realize healthy marriages don't manipulate each other. They respect each other. Healthy marriages, people ask for what they want. You know, I really like some time. I really like a hug right now. I really like for you to sit down and hear me out. They ask for what they want. They speak up for themselves, and they allow their spouses to be who they are at the same time. Why? Because they realize it is far more mature to live for us than oneself. To manipulate another basically says, I don't value you and I don't value us. I value me, I value what I want, and I value my needs. And you're an object to get those. In healthy, loving, mature relationships, boundaries allow us to be me and allow Luella to be Luella. I know where I stop and you begin. She knows where she stops and I begin. But what's most important is we value ourselves and we value the relationship. And we don't hurt each other and we don't hurt us. To do so would be not just hurting Luella, it would actually be hurting me. Why? Because I'm a part of the us. And for me to do something that hurts us is to hurt myself. It is to hurt her. I don't want to live that way. I grew up in a home that was that way. I ain't living that way as an adult. And so this is why manipulation is so destructive in any relationship. But in marriage, it particularly is because it sends the message you are an object. And by the way, this relationship that you have with me called marriage is not going to be a safe place for you. And that to me is a far greater problem. It's Dr. Rick. Have a great day.